What's up, you guys? Steven with Magic Metal Money. Innistrad Midnight Hunt spoiler season has officially begun today, and we're excited to jump in. We're going to be doing daily videos of updates. We're not going to cover every single card, like draft, chaff, and junk cards, but any card that looks like it could be good or fun or interesting, we're definitely going to cover. And let's dive on in today, starting off with Tovolar, Dire Overlord. One generic red-green 3/3 legendary creature. Whenever a wolf or werewolf creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Obviously, the dream is to play a 2-mana wolf or werewolf on turn 2, and then play this on turn 3 and swing away, and you already have just you're coming at them hard. There's already some solid 2-drops in standard that are wolves or werewolves, and there's going to be hopefully some more printed that aren't just simply 2/2 bears. But even a 2/2 bear, when it starts drawing a card every time it connects, really puts pressure on the opponent to have a sweeper immediately. And even if they do have a sweeper, if you're playing against a control deck, you've already recouped your value. And if they don't have a sweeper, and you're not playing against a control deck, there is a lot of value in this card. But let's keep going. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night. Then transform any number of human or werewolves you control. So let's slow down for a second. The werewolf transform mechanic has changed a little bit, and so we have daybound and nightbound, right? And so it's fairly similar. It's based on whether or not you cast 2 spells or no spells in order to transform into day or night, and transform your human side werewolves into the werewolf side of them. But what's different about this and how the mechanic used to work is it is based on the active player and on your turn. And so before, let's say I passed the turn without casting any spells, and part of my motivation for doing that is to transform my werewolves. Well, if my opponent then at the end of my end step casts like an opt or a consider, then it doesn't work. So they've changed that, and now I have more control over whether or not I can transform it into day or night because it's my turn. And so if I cast no spells, it now becomes night on the next turn, which happens to be my opponent's turn. So really cool. I like the way they changed the mechanic. It is still a triggered ability, and it's fairly similar, but you have a little bit more control over it yourself if you're the one playing with wolves or werewolves. I think that's really cool. I like that a lot. But in this case, we now see that day and night is in Innistrad in this case, and it's fitting for the flavor. It's more finicky than that. It's not as controlled. Night comes when you're not expecting it, and in this case, even if you don't do the traditional cast no spells in order to transform it into night or transform into your werewolf side, this time at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 3 or more, if you have a whole pack of wolves and werewolves, then boom, you transform. Speaking of a pack or werewolf, what you need to do is subscribe, join the werewolf pack, and then you can get more videos every day as we go through all of spoiler season. It's going to be a great time. And let's see what happens when this guy transforms into Tovolar, the Midnight Scourge. Now it's a 4/4, so it gets bigger and stronger. Same ability, whenever a wolf or werewolf creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And then, of course, there's Nightbound. And then also, it now gets the Kessick Wolf Run ability. So for green, red, and X, target wolf or werewolf creature you control gets +X+0 and gains trample, which is already just powerful enough. Like, what a great mana sink, great late game mana sink, and just, your opponent thinks they've stabilized, and then boom, you can sink all your mana into this extra damage, and you get an extra 3 or 4 damage in, you end the game. Or if not doing that, that trample ability is really relevant when now you're drawing cards and this chump blocking doesn't work. Notably, X could be 0, right? So potentially, if you're in a scenario where people are chump blocking, or maybe they're trading off, but you still have excess power, you can just pay 2 mana, give your guy trample, and then draw a card. And you could do that to like multiple wolves and werewolves. I think this card looks really, really strong, and it's one I'm most excited about on day 1 of preview season. Festival Crasher, a 1 red, 1 generic, 1/3. So whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Where I think this is going to have an impact, I think Pioneer Prowess. This could be huge. You already have Soulscar Mage and Monastery Swiftspear, and 2 of the best 1-drops ever printed. And now you have this really powerful ability that this could be really strong. I could see a red Prowess or a red-blue Prowess deck really taking off. There's a lot of 1-mana cantrips in Pioneer, and I could definitely see this being a powerhouse, especially like Crash Through. You give this thing trample, and it has 5-7 power if you cast 3 spells. That's a lot of damage coming through, and it has that 3rd point of toughness. And in Pioneer, there's no lightning bolt. A lot of the stuff is play with fire, shock effects that does 2 damage. So this thing, I think this could be really strong, and it'll be fun to experiment with in Pioneer at least, if not also maybe Standard. Who knows? Enough with the Devil and Werewolf evil side. We're going to take a little bit of a swing back to the other side of the pendulum and talk about angels and happiness and glory. We're talking about Enduring Angel. White, 2, so it's 5 mana for a 3/3 flying double strike. You have hexproof. Right off the bat, 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer, obviously a little bit of a weak body. Giving you hexproof is definitely a relevant ability, and obviously it does have double strike, so it hits hard, but 3 toughness is still 3 toughness. If your life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel and your life total becomes 3. Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. So don't transform it in other ways, I guess. Then on the flip side, Angelie Enforcer. Now we get just this awesome metal extreme swinging the sword. She means business, man. This is no joke. She's the Enforcer. Flying hexproof star, or flying you have hexproof, excuse me. So it loses double strike. Then it says its power and toughness are each equal to your life total. And then whenever it attacks, double your life total. So presumably, you're going to have 3 life, right? Because it transformed, and you now have 3 life because it boosted you up to 3. If you haven't done any other life gain effects, you swing in, and it swings in as a 6/6. Right? It triggers immediately on its first attack, doubles your life total. It's a 6/6. Obviously, any other type of incidental life gain is huge, but the fact that this card works by itself is what makes it really appealing to me. You don't need other enablers in order for it to do the thing. It just works by itself. And note also, giving you hexproof is really relevant at this low life total, right? Because that's something that's kind of scary, is you think, oh man, like it flips and yeah, I get 3 life, but they could easily just like lightning strike me or some effect, something equivalent. No, they can't. You have hexproof. They have to kill the creature first. So I think this could see some play. I don't think it's an absolute extreme powerhouse, oh my gosh, Angel Avacyn, like Archangel Avacyn type of thing, but I do think this looks like a strong card and definitely could see some constructed play in Standard. Galvanic Iteration. This is an interesting card, red-blue, and it's a 2-mana instant. The next instant or sorcery you cast, you can then copy it and choose new target. So it's a double cast effect, but it's instant. And then, of course, it has flashback for only 3 mana. So it's only red, blue, and generic. I don't know. Double cast effects usually don't end up being super powerful, but this seems like it could. The flashback is obviously extremely relevant. Naturally, being a 2-for-1 built into a card, it changes the whole system. So I'm not much of a red-blue spells type deck. I mean, if I'm doing like prowess, I've done prowess, so it's creature based. But just like red-blue spell based, you're not going to want to pay 2 mana to like copy your shock effect, right? That's just too expensive. So you're going to need to be playing some bigger spells, and maybe this is it. With the flashback being a big factor here, maybe this is actually definitely like something you put into some type of red-blue combo type of spell-based deck. That'll be interesting to see. Definitely worth experimenting around. Next up is the rare land cycle. Now these are absolutely beautiful. Especially the borderless versions. These are stunningly gorgeous. The artwork is just phenomenal on these things, and I'm really excited about that. But also, these cards look really, really powerful. So they're the opposite of fast lands. They're allied dual lands like Darkslick Shores and Black Cleave Cliffs, but instead they're slow lands. So instead of entering into the battlefield untapped, if you're in your first 3 land drops, it's your 3rd plus. Which is definitely, I think that's great. Like that looks really, really strong. The fact that it's 3 or more, that gives you a lot of flexibility. These things are going to enter into the battlefield untapped without pain or anything a lot. All right, it's been long enough. It's time to talk about Arlinn. Arlinn the Pack's Hope, new Planeswalker, our new Werewolf Planeswalker of the set. It's 2 red-green, 4 loyalty, daybound, +1 until your next turn. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash. And here's the good part, each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counters on it. Notice that includes tokens. That's great. It's not super strong, like doesn't draw you cards or anything like that, but it does give you a lot of power and toughness. I think that's really, really good. And then casting with flash is definitely relevant. Like that's not a bad thing by any means, but not like, oh my gosh, blow me away, super powerful. And then -3, create a 2/2 wolf token. So notably, you can't just over the course of 2 turns, turn this into 2 wolves, right? The fact that it's 4 loyalty and you might have to -3. So right away, when I start thinking Standard, I'm a little bit wary. But sometimes, if it's night, you're going to cast this thing. And that's the other beautiful thing about the way they changed the mechanic. permanents enter the battlefield as their night version if it's night on your turn. So you could just get Arlinn the Mune's Fury and then have, again, 4 loyalty, +2, add green and red. Very, very powerful to give yourself immediate mana. And +2, that's a lot of loyalty. And then the 0 ability becomes a 5/5 werewolf creature with trample, indestructible, and haste. I think the backside's way more interesting. I think the backside's more powerful, which is fitting, right? The whole idea is that the werewolves are more powerful than their human forms, and obviously, it's a 5/5. It's a big, big, big creature. A 5/5 haster for 4 mana, like wow. If you can get this thing to be flipping on night, casted, in the battlefield on night, then it's a really strong planeswalker. If your deck can do that consistently, then I start to be really interested in this, right? Like we know that other guy could make it into night at the beginning of your upkeep. So if you go turn 1 Wolf, turn 2 Wolf, turn 3 Tarlov, or Tarlov, whatever it is, Tovolar, at the beginning of your upkeep on turn 4, all 3 of your creatures survive. It's night, and so this is going to enter the battlefield as its night version, as the Moon's Fury, and that starts to be really powerful. Jadar, Ghoulcaller of Nephalia. 2, 1 black, 1 generic. It's a 1/1 human wizard, legendary creature. At the beginning of your end step, if you control no creatures with Decayed, a new mechanic, create a 2/2 zombie creature with Decayed. And Decay means it can't block, and when it attacks, you sacrifice it at the end of combat. So right away, you play this thing on turn 2, and presumably you don't have any other zombie tokens yet or anything with Decayed, and you get a 2/2 out of it. That's your first end step. That's really strong. Obviously, the Decayed ability is like, yeah, these are not your super powerful zombies. They can't block. They die when they attack, right after they attack at the end of combat. So they're weaker zombies, but we're going to see a lot more of them, right? So there's usually that trade-off in zombie lore, is that they're either really strong and fast, or they're really slow but they're innumerable and there's tons of them. It's cool how they swung that and said we're going to print these things and make them more popular, but they're more fragile and they die easier. For those who didn't play Magic 5 years ago, Avacyn, the Archangel, the wonderful savior of Innistrad, she's no longer. Sorin had to kill her, his own making, anguished unmaking. She's gone, but we still have Sigarda, who's going to try to help the humans on Innistrad. So Sigarda, Champion of Light, 1 generic, 1 green, white, 4/4 flying trample. Solid stats for 4 mana, no complaints there. Humans you control get +1/+1. All right, so an immediate anthem for your creature deck. Obviously, we could see this being some type of human white weenie deck or something like that. Great top end for that type of deck. Coven, a new mechanic. When Sigarda attacks, if you control 3 or more creatures with different power, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a human creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. So it can draw you cards when it starts attacking. If Sigarda, it's great that first of all, the turn you play her, she immediately affects the battlefield by being an anthem effect. That's really powerful. And then once she starts attacking, if she survives, you're now drawing cards. And she has a big enough body, trample and flying, evasion. She's gonna be attacking a lot. And so if she survives for a turn and starts replacing herself with cards, this looks absolutely great. And at 4 mana, this is strong. This is very, very strong. This isn't like a 5-6 mana play. Like 4 mana is really early, especially if you're on the play. Like 4 mana and you're an aggressive deck. This is exactly a great top end for that type of deck, and I see this definitely being powerful if the deck itself can support it. If there's other cards supporting this human archetype, this card, she'll absolutely be a great top end for that. Secrets of the Key, 1 mana instant, investigate, and then it has flashback, and if you flashback, you get 2 clues instead of 1. I think this card sucks. I'm not excited about it. It's fun, it's cool, but realistically, this is no think twice, right, that we've seen before. This is a lot of mana you have to sink in. And Brutal Cathar, now this is a strong card, another werewolf here. So 2 generic, 1 white, 2/2. When it enters the battlefield or transforms into Brutal Cathar, exile target creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. And of course, it's day-bound. Those types of exile effects that are on humans, we've seen these before, or on a creature, on a body, this is definitely powerful. But a 2/2 for 3 mana, not your best rate, but if you can get this thing to flip, now it's a 3/3 first strike with ward, pay 3 life. So again, you just picture this in a deck where people are trying to set up a blocker, you've already established a battlefield, and then boom, you play this thing down and it's a threat and removes a blocker, and you can continue attacking. And then if you can transform it, they can't get rid of it to get their creature back unless they pay 3 life. I think this could be a very strong card. I definitely see it seeing standard play. Bait Hook Angler, not the most powerful card, but does show off a brand new mechanic, Disturb, which looks really, really cool. It's giving flashback to your creatures now, so everything's a 2-for-1, and this is crazy. So 1 blue, 1 generic, it's a 2/1, and then it has Disturb, which is where you can cast it from your graveyard, transformed into the spirit side, and in this case, it's a flying 1/2. This particular creature, yeah, you'll play this in draft. Like, why not? You know, it's a two power, 2 mana creature. It does have a 1 toughness, but then it comes back as a 1/2 flyer, also for 2 mana. Like, this looks great for draft. I assume we're going to see some more powerful versions of this card or this mechanic, and I'm excited to talk about those. They can see some more constructive play and be, you know, more powerful. But the mechanic itself, this is no joke. Defenestrate, love this. Amazing that they made this into a Magic card. This is so cool, so much cooler than Fatal Push as far as the name of a card. So Defenestrate is an actual real word. It definitely means throwing someone out of a window, right? So you ever seen Braveheart? Defenestrate and throw them out a window, right? So it's a 3 mana, but it's like Murder, but a creature without flying. So it's a short-term creature without flying. It's an instant, but instead of black generic, it's 2 and 1 black. So, but this looks like it could also see some standard play in the right deck, in the right control deck. Doll Stitcher. Now this card is crazy spooky and it looks really powerful. So for 3 mana, 2 generic, 1 blue, you get a 2/3 body. It's a human wizard, and then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. Casting an instant or sorcery spell usually gives you a 1/1, sometimes a 1/1 with prowess, but a 2/2, that's a bigger body. You know, this is really powerful, but it does have Decayed, obviously. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more creature tokens, you may transform Doll Stitcher. It's now an artifact, the Toy Factory. Creature tokens you control lose all abilities and have base power toughness 3/3. So now that Decayed drawback that you thought you had, they lose all abilities. They don't no longer have Decayed. So your 2/2 decays are now just 3/3 solid toys being made. These 3/3 army. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, you may transform Toy Factory. So that's cool. You just have the option. Really flexible card. Now, if this is the only thing you're doing to create tokens, not the most powerful thing. But if you start doing this with other abilities, if you start combining this in other formats, so say you do play it with, you know, Young Pyromancer, and now you're making 1/1 elementals and 2/2 zombies with decay, it's going to be really easy to start getting yourself an army of tokens, and then you can transform this thing and just make all your tokens just huge 3/3s. I think you could combine this with Young Pyromancer in the right spell-based deck, and you could start doing some really, really powerful things in Pioneer, excuse me. That does it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with more spoilers for Innistrad Midnight Hunt.